I have been looking forward to the day where I can say this, and to my surprise, I didn't have to wait long at all. Prison Break Arc. That's it. That's the entire intro. What's up? It's Truth Hero, and welcome back to another My Hero Academia chapter review. Boku no Hero Academia chapter 297 of the manga. Oh my goodness, we actually got a prison break. I mean, it was a very short one, it was over like that. But alas, we got one. So let's talk about My Hero Academia chapter 297 and what meeting villains like Masquerade and Chisaki mean for Shigaraki and the villains moving forward, and of course, some new faces as well. Let's dive in. The chapter opens with a really nice description of the prison Tartarus. It talks about how remote the prison is, and it reminds me of Dante's Inferno because the lower you go down in the prison to the basement, that's where the more dangerous quirk users and criminals are kept, with the one at the bottom being all for one. Just like Dante's Inferno, as you go down the circles of hell, the sins are more severe, and of course the person down in the deepest circle, treachery, is the devil. They also say it's a place that once you enter, you never leave from here. Are you sure about that? We see some security personnel on the outside tell the guys inside to go into a code red as Shigaraki attacks the prison with his nomu, and basically waltzes through the front door. We flash to inside the prison and we get this one prison guard's monologue about Gigantomachia who's set to arrive at the prison, and he's like, man, can't we just kill this guy? And the other guy says, well, for one, firearms don't work on him, and two, no, he's human. It would be unethical to use that or things like, I don't know, missiles. He goes on to note how he feels many of the villains there aren't even human. People like Muscular, All for One, Moonfish and the like, they're just beasts in human clothing, those that have lost themselves to their quirks. I really hope this gets out to the public. Like the other guard said, hey, everything's on record, careful what you say. Plus there's cameras in the prison, they're recording everything. Although by the end of this chapter, I'm not sure anything survived because Tartarus is in pretty bad shape, as we'll see. But this would just be more fuel for minor villains who are still undecided to rally together against Hero Society and maybe even join people like Shigaraki or other villain groups under the new Demon King. Also, there are people in Tartarus that aren't necessarily murderers or hardened criminals. There are people like Kurogiri or Shirakumo who were literally lost to their quirks when villains did something to them. However, I think he's right. People like All for One, Gigantomachia, who had yet to be even put in Tartarus, and the like, should not be kept alive because their mere presence threatens society. Now, I'm not for a second saying that this applies to all villains. I think some villains should be, arrested, jailed, and then if they want to make a better life, that's great. I think La Brava and Gentle could be on that path to helping the police. They wanted to be heroes, so let them do that. But when there's people like All for One who have legions of followers, and their mere fact that they're alive inspires these people to do bad things, they're just too dangerous. As we'll see later on in the chapter, the only way to break out of Tartarus was All for One and Shigaraki's shared state of consciousness and their flawless communication. This reminds me so much of the movie Law Abiding Citizen. Even when he's in prison, locked up, he's somehow still targeting people and getting people to kill for him. It's the same with any killer who has this following. And we'll talk about the end of this chapter more in depth, but what happens? Well, exactly that. Who has the following? Who has masses of villains that would do anything for him? All for One. And who comes running? The number one follower, Shigaraki, and he frees him. Now, just because Shigaraki's a follower of All for One doesn't mean that he doesn't think it's his turn. We get this really cool parallel of Shigaraki's face. On one side it's All for One's voice, and on the other it's his, and he's saying, oh, Master, you've awoken, why don't you take a rest? And All for One says, well, what the heck am I doing in prison? What do you think I've been doing? And he means, no, after we break you out, why don't you rest? And All for One says, I will, but I want my body back. And Shigaraki says, oh, no, I know where this is going. And All for One says, you wished for my power, and you spat at the hand of society that didn't accept you. You brought Hero Society to its knees. This is the fruit of your labor. And Shigaraki says, yeah, but I'm not going to be used as some pawn in this chess game. And All For One says, oh no, don't mistake, you're not a pawn. You're the main attraction. I'm going to make you the future king. Now, we'll talk about the fact that that king is actually a demon lord and sounds like something from the Seven Deadly Sins anime in a bit. But this is interesting because we always saw Shigaraki's independence from All For One via the fact that he didn't need to rely on him or Kurogiri or any of his, I guess, companions and really his body or power. But now I'm under the idea that Shigaraki might get an entirely new body and might go through another transformation process, much like the one he went through with Dr. Ujiko, except this time, maybe it's less physical. Maybe Shigaraki does get a new body, but it's more of a conscious transformation. It's possible that All For One and Shigaraki could fuse consciousnesses, or fuse bodies, although I'm not sure you'd want to do that because they're both pretty wrecked. But what do you guys think? How will Shigaraki transform or become the king? Before we discuss the end of this chapter, let's meet some new villain friends. Even Shigaraki has to give Tartarus' security some credit. He says even with Gigantomachia, it'd be hard to do a frontal assault because you wouldn't really get anywhere. The prison is actually a lot of it below seawater, so that would be very hard to break anyone out of it without drowning them in the process. So, what do you do? Why, flawless communication between master and apprentice, of course. Shigaraki and All For One can communicate with this shared consciousness, so when Shigaraki arrives at the edge of the prison, All For One knows he's there, and once Shigaraki does his part of the plan, All For One can take over. Just goes to show you that in a superhuman society with quirks, you just can never be prepared for everything. On the technical side of things, Shigaraki uses an EMP to short-circuit Tartarus' systems, and then somehow they stop the system from rebooting. And when all that brain monitoring, quirk sensors, cameras, and guns that are pointed at All For One no longer work, what All Might said about the villain king not escaping doesn't really hold up either. It's just him and some steel doors. Boom. I don't know what quirk or combination of quirks All For One used to bust out of his cell, but I like it. Now Tartarus has no choice but to send the infantry in, and at this point, why would you even bother? Just abandon ship. This is a suicide mission from the security perspective. But All For One isn't the only person taking note of what's happening. But All For One doesn't need to fight any prison guards because we have the return of Muscular and Moonfish. So glad to see these guys back in action. Muscular is one of my favorite villains, and now I learn he's bulletproof. Might have lost his hand there, but losing appendages is kinda his thing. And Moonfish looks deranged as ever, and he's happy to eat some meat. I did not know that Moonfish was actually bald, but I'll take it. It makes him even creepier to me. Good to see Blade Tooth again. Very cool that Shigaraki's going to assemble his League of Villains 2.0, and I hope that Toga can rejoin the party at some point down the line. Maybe they'll even break Mr. Compress out of the hospital or jail whenever he's healed. I don't know what use they have for him now, but it's cool. We're getting our villain boys back. As great of a surprise this is, we got someone new to talk about. Energy or Electric Girl, or as some of you are saying on Twitter, Denki Kaminari's hot cousin. Actually, none of you are saying that on Twitter. I'm saying that. Now, the reason I say Electric Girl here is she says the system does not respond to her quirk right now, and we know it was just hit with an EMP, so maybe it doesn't have any juice or electricity in it. Then again, we see right after this, she uses some type of energy or electricity to open a cell door. So what do you guys think her quirk is? Is she electricity or is she some other type of energy? Comment down below. So Ella Girl, as we'll call her, goes up to a cell and using some type of energy or manifestation around her hands, cranks it open, and as the door swings, a man with no arms stumbles out, looks up and says, "Father?" And it's none other than Chisaki. What? Huh? Are you kidding me? Okay, Moonfish muscular, that's cool, we get to see him again, we kind of figured, right? And then we get a new girl for the villain team. Awesome! But Kai Chisaki? Really? Why don't you go up a few floors and just bust Stain out and you'll have the whole crew? It's like a Hall of Fame of villains. But Kai Chisaki makes things a bit complicated. I mean, is he really gonna go join Shigaraki? Is he gonna help Shigaraki in this new villain group? Can he even do anything to help them? Obviously, Chisaki and Shigaraki were not on good terms when they last saw each other. I mean, after Shigaraki and Mr. Compress take your arms, I wonder if you have any common goal that might bridge your differences between you, this Yakuza guy, and the new villain king. I mean, Mr. Compress isn't with Shigaraki right now, so it's really only one person that you have a grudge with. I mean, it is the main one, but that's a plus. Also, all you Aries stans, how you feeling right now? Are you okay? Because Chisaki, this horrible person that you all hate, he's walking out the front door. He's a free man, and I like this. He gets to go his own path as a villain again. I was hoping he'd do something different, but it's not exactly like these villains that they're freeing are trying to turn over a new leaf. This isn't Gentle or La Brava. We got Muscular, who just wants to kill people. We have Moonfish that just wants to eat people. So, really, I just wonder who this girl is. What's her backstory? What does she want to do to people? I'm just curious to see how Shigaraki is going to handle his relationship with Chisaki. And might Chisaki actually get his quirk back? I mean, I understand that he could work for Shigaraki, he respects him, he just freed me from prison. But right now, he doesn't have any arms, and unless he can do fancy stuff with his feet, I'm just very curious as to what he's going to do. Maybe he'll, just help out All For One. Who knows? With all these escapees in tow, All For One leads them out of the prison and then sees Shigaraki. He tells them to follow him and watch me from the sidelines as I become a more perfect demon lord. When I first read this, I thought he was talking about Shigaraki, but I went over it carefully, and is it possible that All For One is trying to re-establish himself? I'm very confused by this, because I thought it was Shigaraki's turn. If All For One's going to become a more perfect demon lord, what does that mean for Shigaraki? If Shigaraki is his chosen one, does that mean that All For One somehow has to give Shigaraki his body or his consciousness? That seems to me like the only way that's possible for him to say that without directly telling Shigaraki, hey, it's still my turn, thanks for breaking me out of Tartarus. And if so, what's the point? I mean, there would be no point to raising Shigaraki and fighting All Might. So it's a very interesting line, and I think it does mean Shigaraki in this sense. All For One is going to do something that he can restore himself, but it's going to be for Shigaraki. And it's also a nice little parallel because the whole anime begins with Deku saying this is how I became the greatest hero, so hopefully we'll see the transition from All For One and Shigaraki somehow together becoming a more perfect demon lord. Anyway guys, that's what I got for you. Should All For One have been kept alive in the first place? What does it mean when he says he's going to become a more perfect demon lord? Because I'm still on Shigaraki's side. I still think it's his turn. And what do you make of Chisaki escaping with Shigaraki? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. If you like My Hero Academia content and these chapter reviews, consider enrolling at UA today by subscribing. And until next time, hero or escapee, plus ultra.